Okay, well, welcome again, everyone, to Construction Lead Services from the Construction Marketing Association. Presentation. My name is Neil Brown. I'm the chairman of the Construction Marketing Association. And with me today is our panelist, Chris Noble, Business Development Director at Dodge Data and Analytics. So I want to go over briefly our agenda for today. And before I do, I'd like to say that this presentation will be available to all attendees and all registrants. And we will send you a link to the presentation in about the next 24 hours. So look for that email and add Neil at constructionmarketingassociation.org to your address book to make sure that gets through. So also another housekeeping, I'd encourage you to ask questions using the GoToWebinar control panel, and ask questions early and often, as we'll try and get to the earlier ones first, and try and finish this up before the hour is out. So please do ask questions. And so with that, I'd like to welcome you again, and just mention briefly our two sponsors, Inespro PPE and Modern Marketing Partners. I'll talk a little bit about them in a minute. And the second item is we do have a national survey that we've been running for the last few months, so I will cover the results of that. And then I'll turn it over to our esteemed panelist, Chris Noble. And again, as mentioned, we'll have questions and answers at the end. And if we don't get to your question due to time, I'd be glad to follow up via email as well. So, and finally, we have a number of lead/business development resources in the appendix of this PowerPoint presentation. So you will have access to those. I will cover them very briefly at the end. So with that, just mention a couple of things about our sponsors. Inespro PPE is a manufacturer and retailer of personal protective equipment used for electrical safety. So they're an exciting new company. And Modern Marketing Partners is a full-service marketing agency that works and has expertise in the AEC construction industry. Okay, so let's get right into that survey. And our first question is, do you utilize construction lead services? And a majority, 73%, said yes. And I'd just like to mention that this compares with our last Construction Leads webcast was 3 years ago in 2015, and it was only 58%. So I don't know if that's growth or the survey participants, but it is certainly an increase. So the next question was, what lead services are utilized? And number one was Dodge Data Analytics, followed by other in Blue Book, and then a tie for remodeling, government lead services, and Construct Connect. So, and those were all prompts as well. So, for those of you that didn't take the survey. Next question was, how much do you spend annually on construction lead services? And the largest portion, 44%, was less than $10,000, but a very strong portion, 33%, between $10,000 and $25,000, and then even amount for $25,000 to $50,000 and more than $50,000. No one in this survey spent more than $100,000. We did have some respondents last time that spent over 100, but for whatever reason that maybe we didn't have some of the larger companies in the survey. So then we had a couple of open-ended questions. What is your primary use of lead services, and what is the most important feature of lead services used? And we ended up getting just all kinds of different answers to this. So we attempted to make a word cloud here based on the frequency of answers. So targeting projects was one of the bigger, more frequent answers, followed by finding projects, very, very similar, developing projects. So a lot of pretty obvious project information, customer projects, etc. Some other interesting responses were e-commerce sales, detailed contact information, identifying specifiers. So this is something that I know that Chris is very involved in the building products, architectural products industry. And other points of timely alerts for stage changes, identifying competitor customer contacts. So that's very interesting that you might use it to identify customers that are working or not working with your firm, but your competitor. So anyways, those are some of the answers, and let's go on to, beside lead services, what are some of the other types of marketing that are used for lead development, lead generation, business development? And SEO was most frequent, it's 91%, search engine optimization, that is, followed by trade shows at 82%, advertising, email, paid search or pay-per-click, other, and then telemarketing. So some of the other marketing tactics. So, there was another question that when not used, what was the reason? And the answer, we don't have a slide on it, but the answer was due to cost. And then the lead services used. Some of the other responses were construction reporter was mentioned along with email lists. So just to fill that in a bit. So this is our classification information, company size. You can see that we have a pretty good representation here from very small companies, less than 5 employees, to the majority being 6 to 25 employees and 100 to 500 employees. And then just a few respondents for more than 1,000 employees. So pretty good cross-section there. And then the classification of, or company type, that is, led by building materials manufacturers or distributors, along with other, and then residential and remodeling being a close second, commercial construction. No equipment manufacturer, just distributors. I know there is a couple of lead services that specialize in equipment that provide data on lease expiration and that kind of thing. So we know that is a piece of that puzzle. So that is our national survey. Again, that will be part of the presentation, and we will also write a blog summary on that. So at this point, I'd like to introduce our panelist, Chris Noble, again from Dodge Data and Analytics. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Chris.
All right, thanks, Neil, and thanks to all of you for joining today. I'm going to share some information on project lead services and how my clients have successfully used them to generate business. Before I do that, I'll give you a little bit more background on myself. I've actually been with Dodge since 1985, so I've got almost 33 years in this business. I've been a sales rep. I was a regional sales manager. I managed the field-based sales team for the U.S. and Canada. I did that for about 14 years. And then a couple of years ago, I took a role as a business development manager in the Southeast. And I just work with building product manufacturers, distributors, contractors. Over the course of my career, I've worked with just about every person that's involved in this industry in all sizes, not just large people, not just small people, but everybody. So Neil, if you go to the next slide. So I think that the first thing to start out when you talk about a project lead services, I will tell you that they're not all the same. They're different. You need to choose one based on the specific things that you want to get out of the data and the insight out of the data. And I just put down a couple of the key things that I think I would look for if I was looking for a project news provider. And it's, are they engaged in the local level to gather data, or are they just using a call center? Do the reps that you work with, do they understand the construction industry and how you should use the data successfully? Can they, be really a partner and a consultant? How early in the project life cycle are they getting the information? Most of the building product manufacturers I deal with want to get it very early. How early are they getting it? One of the growing things is CRM integration. That's really become more prevalent over the last couple of years. How successful have they been in integrating data into a CRM like Salesforce.com or Microsoft Dynamics or Sugar or any of the other numerous CRMs that are out there? And then the other thing is, if I do this, hey, what's the plan to onboard and train my people to use the system? Because if they're not going to use it, why am I spending the money? Those are just some of the questions and things I think you should inquire about if you're ever looking for a service. If you go to the next slide, I'll talk to you a little bit about Dodge and what we offer, just so you kind of get an idea of the things that we do. So one of the things that we do is we have dashboards, right, that focus on the opportunity. So, an easy-to-use dashboard like this helps you organize the data and the results, and it lets you visually see items you may want to examine more closely, like the ownership type or the action stage or the project location. So it's not all just about searching, it's making it easy to find things. Next slide. So then once you do a search and you're looking for results, how are you going to view them, right? So a list view is a real easy view to quickly review projects that you may want to look at further. Built-in export capability, allowing you to take this data, put it into an Excel template, sort and manage it outside of the system. That's something that's really important for people, especially like VPs of sales or regional sales managers who are distributing the data to their reps or independent reps or distributors. Next slide. Once you're in a list view, then it's all about, how do I view the project and the detail of the project? In our system, you have one click, it takes you to all the detail. It includes all the firms, it includes notes on the project, it includes the documents if they're there, and then you really make it easy to share the project with somebody. So there's a built-in tool that allows you to share a project with a non-Dodge user. I have a lot of building product manufacturers, for example, that will take a project and either send it to their distributor or an independent rep and say, hey, I want to make sure you're bidding on this. Or they'll send it to a friendly general contractor that they know if that general contractor gets the job, they're going to use their product on the project. And so they'll send something like that to a GC saying, hey, are you bidding on this? You might want to take a closer look. All right, Neil, next slide. So the other thing is, you really want to quickly key in on search terms in the plan specs and addenda documents, have them highlighted, be able to download these these documents, be able to create PDFs out of them, quickly save them, those kinds of things. And that's what the tools do, is allows you to search all the words in the documents, highlight them up, save them as PDFs, use them in your bid packages. Another view, if you go to the next slide, another view that's very popular and something that's really kind of come up the last year or so is integrating the project locations with a longitude and latitude so you can see exactly where they're located. So the Dodge tool is integrated with Google Maps. We place pins on the map. You can see exactly where the project is located. You can do the same thing with companies. So if you're looking for architects that work on education projects in the state of Ohio, for example, develop a list and plot them on a map so you can, develop kind of a route that you're going to want to go and go talk to those architects about your product or about your service. Very interesting, when we introduced the map view about a year and a half ago, what we found were the younger users really like the map view. They really like the visualizations and versus doing Boolean logic searching and coming up with results and looking at things on a list. So all this visual ways to view data has been really popular. Good, next slide. So that brings us to visualizations, right? This makes it really easy to key on the specific details such as spec section, project type, action stages, those kinds of things to further filter your data down and get a list of projects that you might want to pursue, either to be specified on or to bid on when the project gets to the bid stage. And then the last view, or one of the last views that Dodge offers, is a big calendar. And so, you know, you think of big calendar, a lot of people think of it as a contractor tool that, hey, I want to know when the project's coming up for bid, so I'm bidding on it. The building product manufacturers use this calendar a ton. Not only to keep in front of them what projects are coming up for bid that might have their products in the specification or the plan documents, but also to keep in front of them what are the projects that they want to pursue where their competitor is in the spec, but they're not. You know, if that was the case, if you look at the example on the screen, you know, let's say today was the 12th. There's 7 projects bidding today. There's 14 bidding tomorrow. If those were my competitors and I wasn't on the spec, it's probably pretty little I can do to get into the bid and get an addenda issued. But go out a couple, 2-3 weeks, there's plenty of time to go talk about getting an addenda to be approved as an equal and work with the bidders on that bidders list to get involved in their bids. And that's what that calendar is being used for. So if you go to the next screen, we've talked a lot about projects and documents, but the data is not just really project leads. There's tons of information on companies, whether they be owners, general contractors, architects, engineers, etc. A lot of successful firms take this and they use this to build lists of firms based on the project types that they work on, where they're located, and what their pre-bid, meaning projects in design, pipeline is. So they can develop the targeted list of firms that they want to go build relationships with to get in every single one of their applicable projects. And you can do that using this company search. So if you go to the next slide, that's the data piece of things, right? So there's your project leads with, think of projects, firms, and construction documents. But then there's also ways to grab insight out of that data. You know, what kind of intelligence can you drive out? One of the things that you can drive out of the data is identifying market opportunities. So if you want to understand the size, shape, and direction of the market and make sure you've got the right resources in the right place based on where the growth is going to be, Dodge has a tool called Market Share that allows you to do that. It's a web-based tool. It allows you to easily manipulate by project category and geography and look at a 5-year forecast based on project starts and a 10-year history based on project starts. So for building product manufacturers, starts are important because everybody tends to put a lag on when the project starts. So if we have a $20 million project and they break ground tomorrow, we recognize all $20 million of it. The building product manufacturer who makes underground piping may put a 1-month lag on that project. Somebody making flooring might put an 8-month lag on that project to develop a product forecast for themselves. You go to the next slide. So you can identify the forecast, but then the other key is identifying the most active firms and who they typically work with. What are the hidden relationships in the marketplace? Because if you think about it, there's 2 ways to go about this. I can either go after and chase projects, or I can identify firms that I want to work with based on their activity. That's what this tool does. It's called Build Share. It allows you to identify the most active firms based on project category and geography that they work in. And then what it does is it identifies who they've worked with in the past, so you can get an idea of who the firms are that are working together all the time. We have a database that goes back to 1968. We stitched together all of the completed projects, who the owner was, who the architect was, who the engineers were, who the awarded general contractor was. And now you can built it all into a dashboard where you can manipulate it and say, hey, this owner has worked with 17 different architects, but these 3 firms have gotten 60% of their work, right? If I was a rep, I want to build a relationship with that owner and that architectural firm because they're going to typically get the job. Right, next screen. Right, so the other thing, especially for a building product manufacturer, it's important to understand the specification habits of specific firms as it relates to products and brands. We customize this for our clients. It's called Spec Share. Basically, what it enables you to do, it enables you to build a list of firms based on their specification habits around your product category and the brands that you want to track. And so really what you're building here is a list of firms that have a good habit of speccing your product category and a bad habit of not specifying you. And being able to identify those firms and how much pre-bid work they have that can move the needle and prioritize those firms to go after and build relationships with to get those specifications around your brand as basis of design, or at least be named in the specification so you don't have to go through the process of getting an addenda down the road. Right? So that's basically the overview of project leads and the intelligence that you can take advantage of. Neil, I'll turn it back over to you, and any questions that anybody may have, I'm happy to answer.
Excellent. Thank you, Chris. That was very interesting, as always. So let's go to Q&A, pardon me. And let's start out with something that you alluded to, Chris, and that was CRM systems. So I would imagine that's pretty important. Can you comment on how firms are integrating this construction lead services with CRM systems?
Yeah, so it's interesting, especially over, I would say really over the last 24 to 36 months, it's become more and more prevalent that manufacturers of all sizes are using some kind of CRM. They're using either Salesforce or Microsoft Dynamics or Oracle, which used to be Siebel, Sugar, and then there's homegrowns where they've tried to do it on their own. The reason that people want to integrate the data into their CRM system is it saves a bunch of time from rekeying information, which eliminates errors. But the other thing it allows them to do is to build an ROI out of the investment to say, hey, how many projects did we take out of this service? What did we sell based on the projects we took out of the service? And then keep all that stuff in one location. So we've integrated, Dodge is integrated with about every CRM out there. We've integrated with SAP, we've integrated with Homegrown, we've integrated with Sugar, we've integrated with Siebel, et cetera. We've got a couple of plug-in tools for Salesforce and Microsoft Dynamics that embed the data into those tools without any IT assistance, no third-party integrator needed. But it's really, Neil, it's really all about the ROI aspect of it and being able to go back and use the robust reporting in the CRM to identify how much business did we really drive out of this thing, and make it really easy for their reps to use the data and keep the data updated and share it with their team members in the CRM. So it's something that it's more and more and more prevalent. Almost, every month it comes by, it's more people who are looking at CRMs or implementing them, and they want to put the data into them. And then we're starting to work on integrations with marketing programs like Marketo and HubSpot and those kinds of things.
Neat. So related to that is the data then. Are there some best practices for managing the data?
Yeah, within a CRM for sure. The one thing you don't want to do is you don't want to fire hose the data into your CRM and create a bunch of records that don't really mean anything and don't exist. So one of the practices when you're integrating into CRM is really making sure that you've got user control on what can be imported and what shouldn't be imported. Or if you have a firm in your CRM already that's called something different than the official name in Dodge, is being able to link them together so we're not creating duplicate records. That's always the best practice, is to keep the CRM data clean. But in terms of just using the construction leads, it's really that the the best clients and the people who've been most effective are the ones who sit down and work with us and really come up with the right kind of searches that return the results and the insight that they want, and then turning on the automation tools to let the system do the work and run on a regular basis, whether it's every Monday, every day, however you want them delivered to you. Let the system run that and return the results for you so you can quickly get them out of the system and start to work for your company. It's not, I always tell everybody when they start looking at it, it's like, look, the last thing I need you to do is play around in this thing all day long. I need you to get in, get what you need, and get out and start working on your company's behalf.
Wow. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So, anyone that has questions, please use your GoToWebinar panel, please. So, what about the economy? Does the use of construction lead services, does it ebb and flow with the economy and specifically construction and that kind of thing?
I've been through a whole bunch of, peaks and valleys in this business over 30 some odd years. What's really funny is that there's a lot of companies that they buy the data, they know it's useful. It doesn't matter what state the construction economy is, and they stay the course. There's others that, we're so busy we can't really do anything else. When the market goes down, those are the people that start coming out of the woodwork because they have no pipeline to rely on. And so they'll sort of say, hey, we need some help. There's not as much out there as there was, and we've got to find specifically what we're looking for. So we tend to see an uptick from them when the market goes down, because they're looking for more opportunity that they just can't generate because there's just so much volume out there that, what do you have to do? But it doesn't move as much as you would think. When things get really good, it's not like everybody just cancels out and stops doing it and waits until it gets bad. The majority of our business, and I will tell you in the Dodge world, we renew every year about 94% of our customers. And I think it would be higher than that if it wasn't for people going out of business, or, you always have those that can't pay their bills. And the one thing I've learned over my career is it's hard to make money if people won't pay you. So, we may cancel them, or firms merge together, right? Firm A buys firm B, and they were both buying a data set. They don't still both need a data set. They just need one data set. So it's that kind of stuff. But year in and year out, people typically, that understand how to use this and have used it successfully, they keep using it.
Great. Wow. Well, that's interesting that it actually doesn't just knee-jerk react like that for a down cycle. So yeah, we're looking for questions. I've got a good one here that's kind of outward looking. So I'm going to give that to you, Chris. What are any new features or innovations in construction lead services that you see in the next few years?
The base is always going to be the same, right? It's getting the data, getting the documents when they're available, making sure the right firms are there, making sure the projects are updated, that they're in the right place at the right time, so people are, using what's accurate. But one of the things that I definitely see coming down the road, you hear a lot about this artificial intelligence, almost anticipatory as to what does this user want to see based on what he or she has been doing in the searches and in the access and in the manipulation of the data set, and having the system kind of understand what that person wants to do with it, so that they're, you think about suggestions, when you're on a website, right? And it says, suggested websites or suggested this. It's that kind of artificial intelligence where it's going to be, hey, you're looking at this project now. Have you thought about these other 5 that are out here that look similar to that you may want to take a look at? It's going to be those kinds of things where, even less and less is going to be the user having to manually do things, and the system's actually suggesting things and bringing things to the forefront for the user based on their past, activity and interaction with the data. That I definitely see coming.
Wow. And how far off is that? Do you think it's next year? Do you think it's 5 years?
I think it's probably within the next 5 years. I don't think it's next year. The technology is starting to ramp up, but it's not really to where it needs to be. But, we all see the commercials on TV, right? The Microsoft commercial where they're all talking about it, and the IBM watch and stuff where they're all talking about it. So the technology's there. It's going to take some time to kind of implement and embed into the tools.
Sure. Wow. Well, that's fascinating, Chris. Really appreciate you lending all your expertise. Clearly, as you mentioned, you've been doing this for a while, and I think your insight really comes through today. So I appreciate that. So thanks for that, and let's just summarize some things and give you a heads up on what's coming down the pike at Construction Marketing Association. First of all, an overview for those of you not familiar. We are a network of marketing managers and executives in construction-related fields. We have professional development, training, resources, information, networking, and recognition. Our website is Construction Marketing Association. We have a very active blog and a LinkedIn group as well. Importantly, our annual CMA Star Awards has its final extended entry deadline tomorrow, November 16th. So if you're interested in that, please go to CMA and click on the awards page. And then our upcoming webcasts are December 15th on local marketing. And then in January, mid-January, we'll have the 2019 Construction Marketing Outlook. So we'll have a survey related to that as well. So those will be announced shortly. And so in the appendix, we do have some resources, as mentioned. The first is the Dodge website itself has an excellent resource center under the domain. They've got probably the best domain in the construction industry. It's construction.com. And the resources page is right there, but it is /toolkit. So I'd invite you to take a look at that. CMA has a lead generation best practices white paper, and we have a number of self-improvement opportunities, including becoming a member. We do have a professional certification program, the Certified Construction Marketing Professional, or CCMP. And we have a book and a training manual for the CCMP called Tools of the Trade, Modern Marketing for Construction Brands. And lastly, but not least, is the CMA Career Center, which has construction and marketing related jobs, over 6 million jobs nationwide. So please, again, you could find that on the CMA homepage, and it links over to this Career Center. So I just mentioned the Dodge Resource Center, and here's a picture of that. They've got some featured resources, but the other thing I think is interesting is that you could look at resources by the business type that you are, whether you're a general contractor or an engineering firm or what have you, along with topics and content types. I would have loved to have gotten the drop downs on those to see to show you, but I couldn't. And then lastly, this presentation deck has Chris Noble's and my own bio, which is fun reading. So with that, I would like to thank you for attending. And again, in 24 hours, you will get an email with a link to this presentation. And thank you again for attending. And Chris, thank you for being an excellent panelist.
Thank you, Neil. Appreciate it. And thanks to everyone for their time.